Here.
Trustee Riley,
Here.
Trustee Alexander,
Here.
Trustee McMahon,
Here.
Trustee Kane,
Yes, here.
Trustee Flood.
Here.
I believe that's everyone, and I know that Trustee Worth
Okay.
is on as well.
Excellent. And I know that faculty member Clyde Mitchell is with us. Good morning, Clyde. I don't know that we have a student rep here. Is Tristan here? I don't see Tristan. Okay, so we'll go ahead. And first on our agenda is an executive session. And I'm going to read a rather lengthy motion at the request of our council to go into executive session. Could I have a motion for the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee of the Board of Trustees to go into executive session under the provisions of 1 MRSA Section 4056A, discussion or consideration of the employment, appointment, assignment, duties, promotion, demotion, compensation, evaluation, disciplining, resignation, or dismissal of an individual, appointees, or employees of the University of Maine system or any individual university, or the investigation or hearing of charges or complaints against a person or persons subject to the requirements of 1 MRSA Section 405. Secondly, 1 MRSA Section 4056C, discussion or consideration of the condition, acquisition, or the use of real or personal property permanently attached to real property or interest therein, or disposition of publicly held property, or economic development only if premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the competitive or bargaining position of the University of Maine system. And third, 1 MRSA Section 4056E, consultations between the University of Maine system and its attorney concerning the legal rights and duties of the University of Maine system, pending or contemplated litigation, settlement offers, and matters where the duties of the University of Maine system's counsel to the attorney's client pursuant to the Code of Professional Responsibility clearly conflict with this subchapter, or where premature general public knowledge would clearly place the University of Maine system at substantial disadvantage. And again, people disturbed by the length of that can blame Eamon, not me, but we're
So moved, Roger, and good job.
dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Is there a second?
Second.
Beth, could you call the roll, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
Trustee Riley,
Yes.
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
Trustee Alexander,
Yes.
Trustee Kane,
Yes.
Trustee Flood.
Yes.
I'll move you into executive session.
And I would say before you do that, we anticipate being in executive session for about 30 minutes for those of you not joining us. Thanks.
Hi, Ally. Are you supposed to be in executive session or the waiting room? Do you know?
Waiting room, please.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Seth. Are you supposed to be in the executive session? Hi, Seth.
Okay, I think we are back and now in public session. Thanks for the patience of those who waited for us. The first agenda item on our public portion of our meeting is at tab 1 in our materials, authorization to exercise purchase option and reimbursement resolution for the acquisition of 300 4th Street in Portland. Vice Chancellor Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the first item, as you noted, under tab 1, we're requesting the board's authorization for the system to exercise its fixed purchase option for 300 4th Street in Portland. This is a facility currently leased and occupied by Maine Law, the Maine Center, the Graduate School of Business, and other UMS programs. The acquisition secures the long-term mission-critical space that supports our collaboration, student success, and community engagement, kind of key pillars of our unified accreditation and strategic plans. The purchase price is $17 million. We're also asking for your authorization to issue an internal loan to help us finance that. There are references as well to the reimbursement resolution, again, looking to preserve future flexibility for debt issuance here. Importantly, the funds for this purchase will ultimately come from a generous gift from the Harold Alfond Foundation, which will be distributed in installments out over the next 7 years. To meet our deadline to exercise the purchase option and to finalize the acquisition by September 30, 2026. Again, we plan to use an internal loan and may pursue revenue bonds to bridge the timing gap until the full gift is received. This strategic investment not only avoids the higher costs and delay of new construction, but also ensures stability for our graduate and professional programs in a modern renovated facility located in the heart of Portland. Happy to answer any questions on this initiative, and I have a team of experts here to help me out as well.
Thank you. Questions for Ryan or the team on this? We've certainly discussed this before. Yes, Pat Flood.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to the likely cost, if you could, Ryan, of what would it have cost likely to start from scratch, build a new building that suits our needs in the Portland area. So I just wanted to ask what that cost would, what your or Gretchen's estimate of that would be, to compare it against the 17 million here. And also while I've got the microphone, I just wanted to say, I understood that the appraisal of the building was significantly higher than what you're paying. So good job there. But what was the likely cost of a build out of a new construction?
Yeah, so thank you for that. And thank you again for mentioning the 2023 appraisal price of 20.1 million. We've had this conversation a couple of times. I don't know that we've had it in recent years, but back, in 2021 or so, when we were talking about originally leasing this space, we were talking about numbers in the $50 to $70 million range for construction of a new building. Especially if you tried to do it in the area of Portland where 300 4th Street is. I suspect it would probably be even larger than that. So certainly substantially cheaper than building from scratch. And I'd invite Gretchen or Nate to add anything that I may have missed there.
I think you captured it well. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks.
Thanks, Barbara.
Could you explain how much of this building we're currently using, and what we've been doing under our lease agreement for this building? And then discuss, please, the reason why we mention revenue bonds but don't authorize them in this resolution before us.
Yeah. Great question. I don't know if Seth or Lee would like to take the question of how we're using the current space. I think one of you will have a better handle on that.
Please do that, but I'll be deferential to the president.
I'm happy to say that with regard to 300, which is the part of the building I always refer to as the front side, as Seth works with the system and the board with regard to the Custom House side, it sees the ocean. And at some point, I suspect we will refer to that side as the front side. But the front side of the building on right now on 4th Street is used. Every single foot of it is used all the time by Maine Law, by the MBA program. We also have engineering folks coming into the building now. The University of Maine Foundation is in the building. The building is abuzz all the time. We have business organizations coming in and meeting with students. We have the bar, and in fact, a number of our judges are in the building constantly. It is so 300 is thoroughly in use in every aspect of the building. I'm happy to give you any more details and to tell you that this building has been the game changer that the chancellor thought it would be. He was absolutely correct. It has changed the future of Maine Law and the future of a lot of people who have come to Maine Law and are staying in Maine.
Well said. The second piece, Tracy, do you want to touch on the revenue bond language?
Yes, certainly. Under advice of our bond counsel, it's advisable to issue the project and financing resolutions closer to the actual issuances of bonds to meet certain requirements. The reimbursement resolution is done now so that if we or when we purchase the buildings, we could subsequently issue the debt should we choose to be reimbursed, to reimburse ourselves from the cost of that debt.
So really just trying to maintain maximum flexibility to purchase this and the timing of other buildings purchases as well.
Right. Yeah, it just advisable not to issue those particular resolutions until we're ready, if we are ever ready to issue the debt.
Thank you. Other questions? Seeing none, let me then read the text of the proposed resolution for the committee that the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded to the Board of Trustee approval at the November 17, 2025 board meeting, that the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine System to exercise its purchase option for 304 Street, Portland, Maine, at the contract price of $17 million, with all final terms subject to review and approval of the University of Maine System Treasurer and General Counsel. Additionally, the board accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine System to issue an internal loan for an amount up to the contract price plus relevant closing costs. Further, the board accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and approves the reimbursement of project expenditures resolution. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Kane and seconded by
Second.
Trustee Flood. Any discussion on the motion? Barbara?
Just to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, and correct me if I've misstated this. The purpose of internal funding and the potential future revenue bond is to help the cash flow while we await the funding from the Alphon Foundation for this purchase. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. The timing of this internal loan coincides with the timing of payments coming in. So when that last payment comes in from the Alphon Foundation, this loan is closed off.
Thank you. Pat?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say, when this project first came, I was relatively new to the board, and I'll have to admit I was very confused by the project. It had a whole lot of moving parts, and I thought that I guess I just wanted to say I'm very appreciative that the Chancellor and Ryan were both savvy to the issue that we're at hand, and we're able to create a financial transaction that ends up being the one that we have today, or we've approved today. And I also wanted to thank you, Roger, for helping to shepherd this very important project along. And I just wanted to say it was very eye-opening, and appreciate what was done.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call vote, please?
Yes, trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee Riley. I don't hear her. Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Alexander. Trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes?
trustee Johnson,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda at our tab 2, the Maine Graduate and related matter, the Maine Graduate and Professional Center, the Maine Center sublease renewal with the University of Maine Foundation. And Seth Goodall, the Executive Director of the Maine Center, is with us to describe this initiative. Seth, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair and the committee. First, thank you for the last supportive vote on the last action. Much appreciated. We're making significant progress, as you heard the Vice Chancellor Lowe as well as President Softly articulate. This matter at hand is to seek authorization, your approval to move forward and execute a lease, sublease renewal with the University of Maine Foundation. This is their Southern Maine office here at the Maine Center. We're very pleased to have them. They have just over 400 square feet, a series of offices. They are really integral into what we're trying to accomplish here, including in the community, and raise additional funds into the future as we continue to build out the Maine Center. Specifically, we are asking through the University of Maine system, Maine Center will seek our authorization to renew the sublease between the Maine Center as the landlord and the UMaine Foundation as the tenant for the purposes of this sublease for defined office space in the lease and related services within the Maine Center. It's a 3-year term with the right to renew, subject to just mutual agreement upon rent. Mr. Chair, that is what we're seeking today.
Thanks very much. Questions for Seth or discussion before the motion? Seeing none, I'll read the text of the proposed resolution that the Board of Trustees, acting through the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee, authorizes the University of Maine system, acting through the Maine Center, to renew a sublease with the UM Foundation for an additional 3 years, with the sublessor having the option to extend for one additional 3-year term, and total revenue across all terms not to exceed $137,000, with all final terms and conditions subject to review and approval of the University of Maine system treasurer and general counsel. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Kane and seconded by trustee Johnson. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee Riley. Yes. Trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Alexander,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Johnson,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you very much. And Seth, thanks for being with us this morning. We'll then move on to our next agenda item, which is tab 3 in our materials, discussion of the art building construction in Gorham. And good morning, President Edmondson.
Good morning, Trustee Cates. Good morning to everyone. So we are seeking authorization to spend up to $15 million, which is the maximum price guarantee we have with Great Falls Construction, to build a new art building on the Gorham campus. Many of the trustees have visited the Gorham campus when we had our meeting here and toured the current art department building, which is located in the basement of the historic Roby Andrews Hall. That space really is inadequate for the needs of the art department. The new building will house our heavy arts, which includes ceramics and sculpture, which involves wood, metal, and plaster. And it will also hold photography, which includes a darkroom and classroom, digital arts, a 2D design classroom, which will also house art and entrepreneurship classes, and a drawing classroom. We'll also have faculty offices and student exhibition space in the new building. Additionally, there's a plan to include 2 to 3 painting classrooms in the new building. Painting and drawing is our most enrolled studio concentration, and we currently do not have enough room to meet student demand. We have had growing interest in the arts, and we have an 8% larger class than we had 3 years ago. And according to our accepted student questionnaire, approximately 30% of respondents said a new visual arts building would positively influence their decision to attend USM. I've also, many of you have heard me talk about the fact that it's important to have the arts and humanities at the center of everything we're doing at the University of Southern Maine. And we have I've convened an Arts and Humanities and Action Committee that's working with me to ensure that every student has meaningful experiences with the arts. And so this space will help us to increase enrollments in our arts classes among our non-arts majors. And with that said, I'll turn the screen over to Justin Swift, who's our Vice President for Finance and Administration and our CBO. Justin.
Thank you. Good morning. So this is a request for authorization for an art building on our Gorham campus to house our growing art programs. The cost of the project is $15.1 million, which includes up to $100,000 for a solar array. The solar array is being funded with gift funds, which we already have in hand. The space for this new building is being offset by the demolition of 2 white houses on the campus, plus taking space offline. If approved, the construction will start in early 2026 with completion by fall of 2027, so in time for that academic year. We also have a project funding resolution addendum as part of this, which is requesting the authorization for issuance of up to $15 million in financing to reimburse expenditures. USM is building this debt service into its fiscal year 2027 budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the president or for Justin? Justin, could you, I'm sorry, Pat.
Oh, go ahead.
Thanks. I just was wondering, is the location of the new building at the site on School Street where the buildings were demolished, or is it at a different location?
It will be the site on School Street.
Thank you.
Barbara.
Yes, could you just describe where the funding is coming from? In other words, this is USM funding, a part of your budget. Are there philanthropical, charitable contributions involved here? Are there bonds or other system-related costs we need to know about?
Yeah, so we do have $100,000 in hand in gift funds, which will fund the solar array that is part of this project. We are requesting authorization for bond financing, which will likely, if approved, occur next year. The campus will be funding the debt service out of its E&G budget, which we've built into our fiscal year 2027 budget. We are concurrently trying to do philanthropic activity around that. We don't have a goal set or a target set, but anything that's raised will go towards assisting with any debt payments.
And so I just asked, is the committee comfortable with approving a project for a future budget you haven't seen, so that we don't know the trade-offs with what is not being done in order to fund this building and so forth? I'm just not sure how that works.
I can't answer for the committee, but I will say, part of the due diligence that we do on our end is exactly what you're talking about. So in this case, I sat down with Justin, our team sat down with him as well. I've got debt projections for USM going all the way out to 2038. There is some debt that will roll off before this is issued. And so, we've got the full picture. Now, do we know what the budget situation is going to look like in 2027 or 2028? We don't. But part of the 5-year forecast that we do every year that we present to you, we'll be presenting to you in a few weeks when the trustees all gather, is scenarios like this, where we've got long-term projections for what we might need for deferred maintenance, what we might need for debt service, and those are all baked in. This will be baked into that assumption as well.
So I did have one more question, if I might.
Sure.
And that is, it is no secret that USM has a lot of vacant space, and that a number of your buildings are on the demolition list. And so the question is there any consideration given to renovating or reusing or rebuilding an existing structure for this purpose?
Oh, go ahead, Justin.
You can, okay, we do have 2 white houses, one that has already been demolished, another one that will be demolished as part of this project as well. The Roby Andrews building is a building that we are having a structural engineer work with us on. That is where the art department's in the basement of that building now, and it's not a conducive space to the art department. And so this building will address a lot of those needs. We do have a space committee on the campus that does look at space utilization on the campus as well. And we are very aware of our space utilization on the campus and try to maximize the opportunities that we have with space. You are correct that we do have 2 buildings on the demolition list, Sticky Wood and the former law building, which we are working with the system office on.
Thank you. Pat?
Thank you. I just had a question on the financing. Do we anticipate like a 10-year or 15-year financing on this, Ryan or Gretchen?
Could I
I'll
take?
defer. Go ahead, Tracy.
We've modeled out a 30-year financing on this,
Okay,
which
my
we
bad.
we
Okay, thank you.
typically finance for the life of the building. Yes.
30. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? David?
Justin, have you done a pro forma about potentially how many more credit hours you would get from the expansion of the art program based on the demand that President Edmondson talked about?
We do expect there to be growth in enrollment I do try to also build conservative budgets too. For the modeling, I've assumed flat credit hours, but I do anticipate that will grow though with this building. The art program has been growing over the last several years.
Thank you. Any further questions on this matter? I'm not seeing any, so let me then read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee approves the following resolution to be forwarded for Board of Trustee approval at the November 17, 2025 board meeting. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system acting through the University of Southern Maine to expend up to $15,100,000 for a guaranteed maximum price agreement with Great Falls Construction, Great Falls or developer, for the construction of a new art building on the Gorham campus. Additionally, the board accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and authorizes the University of Maine system to issue an internal loan for up to $15 million. Further, the board accepts the recommendation of the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee and approves the finance project and reimbursement of project expenditures resolutions to authorize the University of Maine system acting through the University of Southern Maine to fund the construction of a new art building on the Gorham campus with a project total of up to $15 million using financing with a maximum principal amount of debt of $15 million. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Flood and seconded by Trustee Kane. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you please take the roll call vote?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
Trustee Riley,
Yes.
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Alexander,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
trustee Johnson. Think she stepped away. The motion carries.
Thank you. Just one other question, President Edmondson or Justin, do you actually have a rendering of what this is going to look like yet, or is that not that far along?
We do have a rendering that I can provide.
Could you send it around? I'm sure we'd all love to see it.
Yes.
Thanks. And just one last note on USM. Congratulations for a spectacular opening of the Crew Center a few weeks back. It was quite an event and quite a day.
Thank you so much.
Moving on to a next agenda item, which is a tab 4 in our materials, Sear Hall sprinkler system installation at the University of Maine at Fort Kent. Good morning, President Hadeen.
Good morning, Trustee Cates. UMFK's acting Chief Business Officer, Jacob Jandro, will share the details of the Sear Hall sprinkler system installation. Jacob?
Thank you, President Hadeen, and thank you, Mr. Chair. The University of Maine at Fort Kent is proposing the installation of a sprinkler system throughout Sear Hall to ensure full compliance with the State of Maine Fire Marshal. Sear Hall houses classrooms, laboratories, offices, and our campus store here on campus. Sear Hall is physically connected to the Fox Auditorium, which is currently under renovation. Throughout the design process, UMFK discovered that Sear and Fox are considered one building by the state. Without sprinklers in both facilities, UMFK would be unable to obtain any occupancy permits. We will be installing sprinklers in Fox, which will be shortly underway and is part of the project that was formally brought to you by my predecessor, Pam Ashby. Installing the system in Sear will significantly enhance safety for students, faculty, staff, and visiting researchers. The project is estimated to cost under $700,000 and will be funded through deferred maintenance bond funding that's already been acquired. Alternatives were evaluated, including the construction of a 3-hour firewall between the two buildings. However, the option was deemed costly, more complex and disruptive, considering it would split our campus store and boiler rooms in half. With the addition of a sprinkler system, the system will be effective and, although still disruptive, more logical for our campus and our building down the road. The project is expected to begin in spring of 2026, with most of the work occurring over the summer and a anticipated end date of winter 2026. With that being said, UMFK's recommendation is to install a sprinkler system throughout the first and second floors of Sear Hall, ensuring student safety and improving the university's standing with the state fire marshal. I would be welcome to any questions, and thank you for allowing me to present.
Thank you, Jacob. Questions about this project? Seeing none, let me then read the text of the proposed resolution that the Board of Trustees, acting through the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee, authorizes the University of Maine system, acting through the University of Maine, Fort Kent, to spend up to $700,000 to install a sprinkler system in Sear Hall. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Kane, seconded by Trustee Flood. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Alexander,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next agenda item at tab 5 in our materials, Collins Center for the Arts replacement chiller. And President Farini Money, again, good morning.
Morning, thank you. With this item, the University of Maine is requesting your authorization to spend up to $625,000 for the replacement of the Collins Center for the Arts chiller that has recently failed. For those of you who have been on campus, you perhaps have noticed next to the class of 1944 hall, a steady flow of water coming from the roof of the Collins Center for quite some time. That has been an effort to keep this chiller chilled and working, but it has now failed. And so we do need to do the work to go forward with that replacement. Jenny Boyden can answer more specific questions, but it is a part of the HVAC system of CCA, and this is considered a catastrophic failure. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Questions? President, the source of funds for the project is what?
E&G funds.
Thank you. Any other questions about this? Seeing none, let me then read the text of the proposed resolution that the Board of Trustees, acting through the Finance, Facilities, and Technology Committee, authorizes the University of Maine system, acting through the University of Maine, to spend up to $625,000 to replace the failed chiller located at the Collins Center for the Arts. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Kane and seconded by seconded by Chair Riley. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Beth, could you take the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Cates,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Alexander,
Yes.
trustee Kane,
Yes.
trustee Flood,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item at tab 6, University Capital Plan Briefing. This is part of our scheduled review of capital plans. And this month, we focus on the University of Maine and President Farini Mundy. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a slide deck for this coming up. Thanks. Jenny Boyden and I will do this jointly. Thank you for having us today. This plan covers fiscal years 2026 through 2030, and it's the physical roadmap for achieving our vision of being a learner-centered R1 university, which is one of the major outcomes of our ongoing strategic re-envisioning work. So the plan is a reflection of our strategic goals, and we'll walk you through the big picture and the details. This will be the overview of our presentation. Next slide, please. We'll talk a bit about the strategic priorities, then turn to Jenny, then talk about the highlights and talk about the future. Next slide, please. To understand our strategic plan requires understanding our strategy and the unique role we play within the University of Maine system and within the state of Maine as the state's flagship R1 research university. And we are very unified in our commitment to stewarding our resources to maximize the impact. And so this capital plan is a primary tool for all of that work. You'll see here that we do span the entire state, and that's a multifaceted responsibility for us. We have our coastal regional campus in Machias, and we're a cornerstone of Maine's heritage and Maine's future. We work to drive cultural enrichment, lead scientific advancement, and ensure community impact in every corner of Maine. And so this plan is our blueprint for the physical places where that will happen. And we have been increasingly calling ourselves Maine's Research and Development Department as the University of Maine. Here you see a little bit more about how that work happens and everywhere that it happens. Overall, we steward 11,200 acres across the state. In Maine, we're in every county, as I mentioned, through our cooperative extension offices. We're educating the next generation at our 4-H learning camps. You get a sense of the acreage here by facility. The university farms and forest experiment stations are across the world, the state, doing work that's across the world, actually. And this underpins our status, and it's the backdrop for this plan as you see it. So this plan, which covers, next slide is fine, thanks. And then the next one, it's just about, it's really not just about maintenance, it's about being strategic. And here are the principles that drive the plan, and we've worked hard to be sure that everything's aligned. We're very committed to creating teaching and research environments that support this learner-centered R1 vision for a very wide and increasing range of learners, our traditional learners and well beyond that. We are committed to being a responsible steward of the natural, built, and financial environments, and that's a part of this plan, and you'll see it here. And then we are absolutely prioritizing connections and community in the spaces for learners, faculty, staff, and community members. One consideration here is that we've had the good fortune in the last few years to have a confluence of funding for capital improvement at the University of Maine, ranging from our own E&G investments to state Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan dollars, to the generosity of our donor base, to the Harold L. Fawn Foundation, specifically investments through UMS Transforms and the Athletic Capital Plan investments. And then perhaps most significantly, during this period, congressionally directed spending and community project funding that has come our way from our delegation, particularly Senator Susan Collins, with her leadership in the Senate Appropriations Committee. We have 93 projects right now underway on our campus at a capital level, totaling about $345 million. And we're a big percentage of the UMS activity in this general capital area. I will add that this period of building at the University of Maine is the most intense that we have seen since the post-war years in the last century. So we're very excited and pleased to share with you our plan, and I'll turn it over to Vice President Boyden.
Thank you, President Farini-Mundy. As the President noted, our capital plan is firmly grounded in our strategic priorities, and my role now is to connect those priorities to both the physical and financial realities. The next section provides a high-level overview of our facilities portfolio and, crucially, the data-driven findings from our facilities assessment by Gordian. So many of these slides will look familiar to you as they're the standard Gordian slides. Looking more closely at the University of Maine's flagship campus in Orono, our university-owned portfolio includes 325 buildings. These buildings make up 4.9 million gross square feet of building area, with a total assessed value over $1.9 million. And when you include the assets that are in those buildings, that adds another $564 million. This is an enormous and complex portfolio to manage, maintain, and steward for the future, and its condition is the central focus of our plan. At our coastal regional campus in Machias, we're responsible for an additional 274,000 square feet. The university-owned portfolio at Machias includes 51 buildings. The total asset value for Machias stands at $105 million, with an additional asset content of almost $52 million. Together, these two campuses represent the vast and varied infrastructure that is the physical foundation for our mission. This diagram shows Gordian's high-level findings, illustrating the interplay between our physical space, our capital investment, and our daily operations. The central challenge is stated at the top. We're investing more in our facilities, but we are doing so in the context of rising costs and a significant existing backlog. Let's look at each of these three areas. On space, the Gordian assessment confirmed that UMaine has an older campus than its peers. Our buildings also have lower technical complexity and a lower density of users. This means we are more spread out and can be less efficient than our competitors. On capital, there is good news. Our investment in existing facilities has increased in each of the last 4 years, reaching a 10-year high of $21.7 million in 2024. However, a key takeaway is that even with these year-over-year increases, our total investment remains below Gordian's annual investment target needed to keep pace. Unsurprisingly, our operating costs increased to a 10-year high in FY24. This is the direct result of inflation and an aging infrastructure. The core finding is this: we're making progress on investment, but we're still falling short of the target needed to stop our deferred maintenance from growing. This slide highlights a central strategic challenge. Over the last decade, our research productivity has increased, which is a key indicator of our R1 success. Simultaneously, our 10-year enrollment has seen a decline, and our enrollment, if you're trying to track that, it's the lighter blue dotted line, and our gross square footage is the solid line in comparison to the peers, which are the darker lines. This creates a mismatch. We have the same large aging footprint to maintain, but our use of that space is changing. We must invest to support high growth research areas while also addressing underutilization and inefficiencies in other parts of our portfolio. Our main campus densities are lower than our peers. This means that we have more square footage per person. From an infrastructure and financial standpoint, this is inefficient. It translates to higher utility costs, a larger maintenance burden, and a greater capital need per student. A key part of our long-term strategy must be to consolidate and create more efficient, modern, and dynamic spaces. So as you look at this slide, you can see that the UMaine density is in the light blue on the left, and the Machias density factor is in sort of the greenish color all the way to the left on the slide the chart to the right. This slide presents a stark comparison to our peers. Net asset value is a key industry metric. It's the replacement value of a building minus the deferred maintenance. As you can see, UMaine's net asset value is the second lowest among our peer group. This is a data-driven way of saying our buildings are, on average, in poorer condition than our competitors. This directly impacts our ability to recruit top-tier students and faculty. This capital plan is designed to address this competitive disadvantage. We see a similar and even more challenging picture for Machias. Among its peers, Machias's net asset value is tied for the lowest, and this underscores the critical need for strategic investment in Machias to ensure its facilities can support its unique and vital mission on the coast. This chart breaks down the net asset value problem at UMaine even further. More than 54% of UMaine's buildings, more than half of our campus, has a net asset value of less than 50%. This means the deferred maintenance backlog for those buildings is more than half of their replacement value. These are buildings that are in the renovate or replace category. This is not a problem we can solve in one 5-year plan, but it's a problem that we must confront systematically, and we are working towards doing that. At Machias, the situation is comparable. More than 48% of Machias's buildings also have a net asset value of less than 50%. This is objective data from Gordian, and it is the foundation of our capital plan. It allows us to move from what we think is broken to what the data proves is our most critical need. Now, let's look at what the deferred maintenance looks like in dollars. Our total deferred maintenance cost for the University of Maine now exceeds $1.08 billion. Our 5-year strategic capital plan is not designed to solve this entire backlog, but rather to mitigate and target the most critical parts of this billion-dollar challenge. The $1.08 billion is the total need, but this slide shows the most urgent subset of that number. UMaine's current needs for our existing buildings, meaning systems and components that are past their useful life, and are in critical condition today, stands at $354 million. This is the immediate backlog that this plan must begin to address. And we just discussed one of those items. As you'll see on this list, HVAC is a significant issue across campus. You just approved the CCA chiller, and we have many other buildings that also have similar needs. At our regional campus, the picture is proportional. The current needs for Machias's existing buildings stands at $50.8 million. When you compare this to the total asset value of Machias that we saw earlier, the number is significant. So we've defined the backlog. The next question is what do we do? What do we need to invest annually just to stop the backlog from getting any worse? According to Gordian, UMaine would need to invest $28 million a year just to maintain the current state. This $28 million is considered keep up. It's the benchmark that we would need to meet or exceed to be responsible stewards of our facilities. So how did we do last year with the keep up benchmark? And I just want to throw it there for the financial people. Last year is FY24 because this is Gordian's assessment that was done in FY25. In FY24, UMaine's combined investment into our buildings was $19.5 million. This is the core challenge. Even with significant investment, we're still adding to our deferred maintenance backlog because we're not meeting that annual target. The challenge at Machias is just as significant relative to scale. Machias would need to invest $1.3 million per year just to maintain its current state. And that would consume over 20% of their E&G and auxiliary budget. It is significant. After laying out the full scope of the challenge, I want to pivot to the investments that we are actively making. The good news is that the total capital investment at UMaine remains high. We're not starting from zero. We're in a period of significant capital activity, as you will see in the plan. And at that high level of investment, it is not an anomaly. It's a trend that we are projecting forward. As this slide shows, investments are expected to continue steadily through FY29, and this gives us a strong foundation. Our job now is to ensure that every dollar of that steady investment is used strategically to buy down our most critical deferred maintenance and advance our R1, D1 goals. This leads us back to the plan itself, and I'll turn it back over to President Farini-Mundy. I will note here for you that we've added a few slides, so in just a couple slides from now, a few slides will be new.
Thank you very much, Jenny. And I'll turn back to a summary of the financial scale of our strategic plan. And this, again, is our data-driven response to addressing the critical needs that you've just heard about. So for the upcoming fiscal year 26, we are planning a total one-year capital investment of $148 million. And then as we look at the full 5-year window, the plan investment for capital expenditures would be at $700 million. This is significant. We understand this. And in the following slides, we'll show you how we've aligned this to our strategic priorities and discuss the challenges that we will face with that. Here you see a few of the projects that are on our plan, or that will be in our plan, underneath the major strategic direction that we're focused on, of the three that we're focusing on here. So becoming a learner-centered R1 building. The Life and Health Sciences Complex would be an earmark, a CDS project if that comes to pass. And so that is here as something tentative. The MCEC Boardman Hall renovation needs to begin as that facility is becoming unusable rapidly. We have the GEM building, the Green Engineering and Materials building that is coming along, and you see the rendering of that up above. You can actually see real photographs these days that look almost like this. It's really exciting. Sawick is the facility that you've approved for sustainable aquaculture workforce and innovation. The Bot Loft is up and running. So you get a sense of the types of projects and how they're aligning with our strategies. That's really our point here. Under responsible stewardship, our biggest focus really is about the UMaine Energy Center, which is critical, and then other repairs and upgrades. And then the community and connections pieces will speak a bit more about some of this, but I wanted to flag the residence hall modernization piece of this plan, as well as the Powers and Dorward halls at UMaine Machias that will be getting attention. So let's take a look at the next slide now. Okay, so I wasn't sure where the new ones were added. Thank you, Jenny. They are here. So this is a piece of our strategic capital plan, and it's part of the athletics master plan, which is funded primarily, of course, by the Harold Alfond Foundation with other donors. And this is a rendering of Morse Arena, which will be the site for basketball as well as portions of football operations as we break ground for that in the coming weeks and months, and then begin that construction. This will be an incredible addition, not just to our campus for basketball and for viewing of football and basketball and operations areas, but for the entire system, state, and the communities in these areas, because it will be a facility open widely for events and for large gatherings that we are excited to be able to host here. Next slide, please. And that will be a part of the Harold Alfond Athletic Village concept that we're working on right now. Next slide, please. Is this the video? Oh, okay. This is the overview. This is this gives you a rendering again of the entire complex of athletics, where you see areas that are in place now and areas that are in process or that will be coming along. And this work is moving along apace, and it's going to be a transformational area for this campus and for well beyond athletics. Next one. Okay. So here's the aerial view. Hot off the press, thanks to Marcom here, and you get a sense of the scope and placement of this. And at some point, if people are interested, we can go in and explain what you're seeing. But certainly you can see the new soccer field here, the new track, the up in the right, the current right, you see the Alfond Arena down toward the river with the white distinctive roof, and so much more. And this will give a feel for what the entire athletic area will be like. Thank you for that. We're very grateful to the Harold Alfond Foundation for this opportunity. Next slide, please. Let's go into more detail about the funding sources for the next year, for fiscal 26, and what we're focused on here. The finishing of the Alfond Arena, opening GEM and Sawick, and then beginning construction on the Morse Arena. 46% of this funding comes from UMS Transforms and the athletics pieces of that award. And then you see other percentages as they fall out. And this is well planned, and it's part of our current thinking. Only 7.3% will come from our own E&G and auxiliary budgets, which means we're very heavily reliant in a way that we're quite attentive to on our external funding. And we know that that comes with some risk, but for this year, at least for 26, things are looking very solid. Next slide, please. Let's go back to the last one just for a second, please. I want to be sure that folks can see these differences that are demonstrated here. Utility infrastructure in the dark blue, that's a big piece of our investment. We really do need to continue to sustain that infrastructure for the campus. And then renovation and renewal, also a big chunk. As Jenny has explained, we need to keep that going even as we bring in new buildings. Next slide, please. Here's an even more focused look as we look outward in the 27 through 30 fiscal years, where we can see again that the strategic priorities remain firm. We would advance athletics and the MCEC master plans, construct UMEC, and begin a major multi-phase renewal of our residential housing. But the big thing to note on this slide highlighted is that 49% of this funding is marked as to be determined. That is because this plan is a roadmap, and we fully understand that we have much work to do to find those sources of funding. We'll secure, we hope, federal grants, federal CDS into the future, launch new philanthropic efforts, and work closely with the state and this board on future funding strategies. We have high confidence in the projects, and we're committed to the need for these projects, but we understand that the funding and securing the funding is our next major task. I wanted to put on the right of this slide just a sense of how these investments will fall out across our three major priorities. And you can see that we're pretty close to even in the learner-centered R1 emphasis area and the community connections area. And then, of course, a significant investment too in responsible stewardship. And so we are trying to take care of what we have as well as build new things and invest in the people and experiences that define our university. Finally, and then we can go to questions, we'll talk a little bit about the future and how we are thinking about this. And I actually may call on Jenny to help with this slide a little bit, but basically you see this sense of the work we're doing now to look to the future. We're doing master planning for the future and simultaneously looking at funding options for what we face. On the planning side, we're synthesizing our residential housing study synthesis done last year to make plans for a very specific path forward on that. At the same time, looking at space needs, you saw the Gordian numbers. We want to be sure about occupancy and density being at maximal uses. At the same time, we need to understand how research space fits into those calculations and how our peers manage all of these considerations. A revised campus master plan, an energy study, and then working with our foundation comprehensive campaign activities beginning there. And then on the funding options, I'll actually turn to Jenny to say a bit more there if she chooses to. You can see the list of the sorts of things we're looking at.
Thank you. On the funding side, we're pursuing an all of the above approach. This includes a comprehensive campaign feasibility study, maximizing our federal grant opportunities, engaging corporate partners through efforts like SPIRE, and exploring public-private partnerships. The entire effort is in alignment with the system's strategic priority commitment number 2 on financial sustainability and effective infrastructure. And it is all guided by our own strategic re-envisioning principles.
So in the next slide, you see a bit more about this potentially transformative plan. It would impact our campuses very positively. And you can see the words here. We'd support the R1 mission through so much of this plan, but with this learner-focused R1 theme that is being first exemplified in GEM and will now propagate through the new spaces that we create as we define what it means to be a learner-centered R1, even in our R&D facilities. Tremendous facilities enhancement. As we confront the over $1 billion in deferred maintenance, we will systematically renovate and renew the most critical buildings and try to do our best to make them better for all. Energy resilience on the next slide, critical for us in the next wave of planning for this campus. And the new University of Maine Energy Center, UMEC, will ensure that we're able to maintain the energy infrastructure for the future. We can do a whole presentation on the energy challenges that we face right now with this extraordinarily aging energy infrastructure. And then our high priority on community benefit to modernize residence halls, the academic buildings, and help be sure that we remain a cornerstone of cultural enrichment and scientific advancement for the entire state. So with that, I believe we're ready now to conclude our formal presentation and go to any questions that you might have for us. Thank you.
And Chair Cates had to step out for a call, so I'm stepping in for him. Questions? Trustee Alexander.
Well, I don't have any questions about the University of Maine plan. I'm sure I'm impressed with the degree of attention to all the factors that influence your needs and your identification of what you know and what you don't know about future funding. So I have one question, and it's a board-related discussion that needs to happen, I think. And that is every single one of our universities could create and present to us aging buildings, deferred maintenance, the need for capital investment. We just heard one this morning about how USM is focused on arts and humanities programs and buildings to implement that. At UMA, we have new dorms. So from the board's perspective, what is the system oversight and set of priorities that we need to grapple with? And we need to do that in light of the demographic cliff, the lack of potential growth. I mean, we may maintain enrollment. Do we really expect to expand it? And how, and the impact of online learning, which will reduce the need for some types of buildings. Maybe not the research work that is going on at U of M, but has an implication for the system as a whole. So when I hear a campus by campus approach to these things, I go back to what the board needs to do is talk about a system-wide set of priorities and a system-wide set of fundraising because the pie is probably not big enough to do it all everywhere. And by that, I mean the philanthropic pie, the state appropriation pie, and now our real concern about lack of federal funding and support for this kind of work. So I don't mean to criticize any aspect of what I've heard, but I do set the stage for what I think the board needs to focus on when we hear the campus by campus proposals. Any impact from other board members on that idea, I'd love to hear.
Well, I think that's clearly the agenda following up on our retreat, so we'll visit that a little bit more in November. And I think it's an ongoing discussion for all of us. I would say that I thought the proposal was terrific. It was just comprehensive, very eye-opening, very sobering, but very thoughtful. And let me just, let me just ask a question that you may not be able to answer now, but one of the innovative approaches that the University of Maine has done is that P3 with the converting historic buildings into the hotels that are so lovely. I don't know if this is the time, but at some point, could we get an update about how well that model is working and are our expectations being met? It's certainly a lovely couple of buildings.
Absolutely, Chair Riley. Thanks.
That would be great. And I would commend to everybody a recent New Yorker article about the University of Maine and its research initiatives under federal plight, in which the writer talks about the need for improving the physical plant at the R1. Sorry, Ryan, Vice Chancellor Lowe.
Yeah, so I thought all of Trustee Alexander's comments were right on. I was just going to mention a couple of pieces of context. So, you know, we do this level of kind of detail as part of the 1-year and 5-year capital plans that we present to this committee. One of the pieces of feedback we got from that was, boy, that's a lot of information for us to absorb at one time. And so the solution that we worked on was exactly what the agenda was today, which is rather than try to jam all the campuses in on one day, we'll pick a meeting, we'll have a campus present, and then we'll kind of do that on a consistent flow. And so I think maybe we had USM at a recent meeting before that, we had 2 other campuses. So the idea is to continue kind of that conversation, but then also weave in things like the board's strategic plan, part of those conversations, the master planning exercise that we started off the agenda, talking a little bit about those. So all of those weave into that, as well as, I think, as Chair Riley said, the conversations that we've had at the retreat. So certainly look forward to more conversations in this space as we roll forward.
Other questions, concerns? I can't see everyone. If you need, just jump in well, it was a very thorough and easily understood and sobering presentation, but clearly a plan to move forward. So thank you very much. And with that, we will move to tab 7, which is the IT project update.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And good morning. I think it's still
morning. Robert Placido, the king of IT.
Thanks. Well, I don't know that king is such a popular term these days.
Good point.
Nice to see you all. Thanks for the opportunity to share a bit about what's going on in IT. And it's really nice to go after you hear all the other work going on across the system. I thought did really nice job with their capital plan. And it just shows the lift that's going on everywhere. And I mention this because anything that I mention requires that the campuses participate. And so each one of these projects, while we lead and sometimes do these on our own, most of the time requires heavy lift from the campuses. So it just shows you the rapid pace that we have set to improve together. And I really appreciate the presidents and CBOs and everybody that I have the opportunity to work with. But in short, UMS IT has continued its journey towards a more secure, unified, and modern technology environment. One that not only strengthens our cybersecurity posture, but also enhances the daily experience of our students, faculty, and staff. So we have over 200 active projects, and I've selected just a few to illustrate where we're going and some of the major things going on. Our work has focused in this last year really filling in some gaps in upgrading critical infrastructure, which often doesn't get advertised because it's just stuff that has to happen behind the scenes. But we also looked at modernizing our financial systems, improving access to digital tools that support teaching, learning, and operations across campuses. So the first project that you'll hear a lot more about in the coming year is our move to Microsoft A5 security and identity modernization. Identity management in a university system is very complex. I won't go into detail, but you can imagine that we have to determine when an account gets created, what part of that student life cycle or employee life cycle, when they get access to which system, when they switch roles, they're a student and an employee, what roles do they have and maintain, and when they get decommissioned, and all of those things. For long periods of time, it didn't matter if we let people maintain accounts. But just to give you a sense of how big that scope gets over time is, we have sub 30,000 students that are active in our system, yet we have 180,000 accounts. And that's because when students leave, we want to give a wide gap in case they come back, so we don't decommission accounts. And all of that stuff has to be managed. And the move to A5 security is a part of this strategic plan to get our arms on better control of all of that. That helps us to reduce risk and reduce costs over time. But it is complicated, and we don't want to produce any sort of unintended consequence with that. So it will take us a while. Our contract doesn't expire for, our current contract with Microsoft doesn't expire until the summer. So we will take the time to train and prepare a plan for this transition so there are no hiccups. And obviously, all of these IT major implementations are complicated. They require a lot of coordination and participation, so we will dot our I's. This platform, I'll refer to it as A5 as we move along. We'll advance not just the identity management that I talked about, but data protection, data governance, and will also allow us to provide multi-factor authentication at a higher level to all students, which we don't have currently. We have had a number of cyber events this year that really just show that our students need to have that advanced protection like we implemented to our employees this year. The Microsoft products that will come with A5 will also allow us to have some tools that we haven't had in the past for things like enterprise analytics, governance, some things for our attorney's office, compliance, and will greatly reduce our administrative overhead for managing all of this and meet all those regulatory standards, which are a moving target for us this year in particular. So next, our Adobe licensing modernization went off pretty well. This month, we launched a system-wide Adobe licensing model that expands our document management tools to student and employees. So every student now has access to Adobe Express. All employees now have access to Adobe Express and Adobe Acrobat Pro, which will support collaboration, accessibility, and approval workflows across the system, which for our research faculty, Adobe is such a critical tool because most research is published in a PDF format, so now they can use that to enhance their research endeavors. The next project is Advancement CRM. UMS leadership has approved the continuation of a project to move from our advanced platform to Ascend for advancement operations. 2 new positions were supported and are actively being searched for right now, an administrator and a reporting analyst. Once filled, the project will resume modernizing the system's fundraising, alumni engagement, and our data analysis capabilities in that front. Next project is our wrapping up of ERES Life housing system. This implementation reached its fall milestone with all campuses in production and integrated with our student information system. Training is complete across the system. UMFK, the final campus, will complete integration following its vendor-led sessions. So we have a centralized, modern, consistent housing management system with that experience across the entire state. The next project is a new study abroad management platform to support the global engagement. UMS implemented via TRM, a centralized study abroad management travel management system. The platform streamlines the student applications, program matching, travel registration, compliance in one place, replacing all the manual fragmented processes. The system strengthens our compliance in good timing because this year all of that has become much more complicated the federal visas, travel requirements, and obviously it improves our efficiency in reporting. In the past year, we focused on upgrading our financial systems. We completed a major upgrade to the Main Street financial system, aligning with our HR, aligning it with our HR and campus solutions platforms. The update improved system security, compliance, and performance while introducing a cleaner, more consistent user interface across the devices. The project success reflects close collaboration between IT and finance departments and staff. As I mentioned, was delivered on time with minimal disruption to users, all hallmarks of disciplined project management across departmental teamwork. Just shows that we can get things done together in these really complicated systems. We continue to improve our vendor relationships and management to hold them accountable on all their deliveries, which is a huge challenge in IT. As an example, TouchNet, a longstanding payment processing partner, after a year of focused engagement with them, we secured a commitment for long requested improvements that will simplify the student payment process. Well, this represents a major step forward with TouchNet and our relationship with them. We are actively looking to evaluate that relationship in the coming year to ensure our financial systems continue to be both operational need and service expectations. So we'll continue to push all of our vendors to meet our needs and hold them accountable to our contracts and timelines and so forth. Across the system, as I mentioned, we have more than 200 active IT projects that are advancing cybersecurity, modernizing our infrastructure, keeping up with our deferred maintenance, the user experiences, and trying our best to keep up with all the changes that AI and those impacts that will affect us. These efforts ranging from financial system, network, data improvements, and all of this represents coordinated investment in technology. Each of these initiatives that I've just cherry-picked for you today demonstrates our commitment to protecting institutional assets, improving our service delivery, and ensuring that every dollar invested in technology delivers measurable value back to us. But again, I just want to offer my thanks to the presidents and their staff for their continued support and great work this year. Couldn't be happier. Still got a long way to go, but look forward to working with everybody.
Robert, thank you. Thanks, Trish, for sitting in here briefly while I was gone. Robert, are you completed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions? David?
Robert, a very good presentation. Can you talk a little bit more about the advancement? Is that across all the foundations? And how is that tying into the effort to establish foundations at some of the smaller colleges? And you mentioned 2 new positions. So I'm assuming there's a cost benefit here. 2 positions cost money. Can you talk about how those positions are going to be paid for by increasing fundraising?
Sure. So we've had this project on the books for a number of years, just to set the stage there. And when I came in, looking at the state of it, the money set aside to get the project done was reaching its end. And we needed to regroup. And so that's sort of the way I formulated. I had to put a proposal back together, bring it to the presidents to show what that return would be. The foundations across the system, and not every campus has one. So some of the alumni development are done locally by internal staff. But there are efforts at all of the campuses, USM and UM obviously being the biggest foundation players there. But they all came together a number of years ago to say the reporting complexity and while they can collect money, but the efficiency of processing all of that and tracking it and reporting back to the government and all of those things were becoming so complicated, they needed a consistent system. So they are working working together to build the system and centralize it and have common practices, so which is really laudable. And but we also had increased costs on those back-end systems to make all of that happen. So brought that back together, and that's why the positions were created to support that centralized system, because the presidents realized what an opportunity this would be. Any of those efficiencies paying back multi-factor. I mean, you saw all the money that has come in over the last even year doing it inefficiently. So we can all imagine what even small campuses like Fort Kent bringing in a new person there. But the first thing he said is, "Hey, I need IT support. How do I even collect cash, and where does that go, and how does it get into the accounting systems, and how do I do my reporting?" And there's no way Fort Kent could afford to stand up an individual system to support all that. So working together in a centralized fashion, now they can stand all that up and compete and bring money in. So as far as I don't have to, I was trying to struggle to remember the numbers off the top of my head, but millions of dollars compared to $100,000s of dollars in expense. It's the ROI on it is fabulous. So.
Thank you. Trish?
Thank you. Terrific presentation in plain language, Robert. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I wonder if it might not be appropriate either at the next ASA meeting or preferably at the November board meeting to get an update on how the unified catalog is rolling out now that it's in real life and real time.
Yeah, perfect. Would you like, since it's live, would you like a demonstration or?
Absolutely. Show and tell.
We'll do it.
That would be great. We can figure out which is the best venue, but that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Further questions for Robert? I'm not seeing any, so Robert, thanks again very much. And we'll look forward to your presentation at the board meeting. Next on the agenda, I think with everybody's permission, we'll continue to plow through the agenda. We're ahead of schedule, and maybe we can end a little bit even early today. Next on our agenda, I think something we've all been looking forward to is the update on strategic AI initiative that's being ported back by Vice Chancellor Lowe. Ryan?
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, it's actually the demolition fund, unless you take these out.
I apologize. Excuse me, you're absolutely right. I apologize. First,
We want to see the building crusher part of this program.
Right. We'll do the demolition fund first, which is also Vice Chancellor Lowe. Thank you, Ryan.
And also as exciting. So thank you, Mr. Chair. As part of the continued work to manage the system's facilities responsibly, I'm excited about today's discussion focusing on the demolition fund and how it supports our broader efforts to right-size our physical footprint. We've made some substantial and meaningful progress over the last several years, eliminating obsolete and underutilized space. We think we're now positioned to accelerate that work through a structured system-wide plan. Nate is going to start us off. We're going to talk a little bit about the history, the work that we've done so far. I'll talk a little bit, I'll come back, I'll talk a little bit about the demolition plan that the Chancellor brought to you in January and some funding that we're proposing, and then we'll throw it to Gretchen to wrap it all up and tie it into our capital and master planning after that. So with that, let me throw it to Nate and he'll kick us off.
Great, thank you, Vice Chancellor Lowe, and good morning, everybody. We thought it'd be kind of helpful to give a quick history on where we are with the kind of demolition plan. The most current effort that we're wrapping up started in early 2019. When the Board of Trustees authorized the system to spend up to $3.4 million for the reduction of facilities through demolition system-wide. And this was funded with some initial seed money, and then Vice Chancellor Lowe identified $850,000 a year in appropriations to kind of continue to fill that bucket so we could demolish some facilities. When that initiative kicked off, there were several data calls that went out to the universities to identify facilities that they felt were either underutilized or no longer needed, and where the cost of repair clearly exceeded the value of the building. Through that call, we collected quite a few buildings, and the system set up several committees and subcommittees to review those requests, identify the projects that would move forward, and made recommendations for demolition. Through those efforts to date, we have demolished 35 structures across 5 universities for a total of 159,000 square feet. That effort utilized approximately $2.5 million of system funds. And according to Gordian's FY20 data, which was kind of when we started this effort, those buildings that were removed basically eliminated $21 million in total facility need from the system. So a very, strong ROI on that initial investment to what it prevented us from having to spend as we moved forward. So that gives you kind of a quick snapshot. Obviously, it was a lower dollar amount than we're going to talk about now. And while we were able to remove a lot of facilities in 35, if you look at, do the quick math on the $2.5 million and the 159,000 square feet, the average is about 4,500 square feet per building. And so obviously we had some outliers on both ends, but these were smaller buildings that we were able to go after and remove. And the really exciting part about this initiative, the Vice Chancellor Lowe and Gretchen are going to talk about, is we will be able to kind of look at some of these larger buildings that we hadn't been able to go after simply due to the cost. I see Chair Riley, you have a question. I'm sorry, you're muted.
Sorry, Nate, I don't.
Okay.
To lower my hand.
Okay.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, sorry.
No problem. I was just wrapping up my portion. And so unless there's any kind of questions on the history, I'll turn it back over to Vice Chancellor Lowe.
Excellent. So, as Nate said, we've committed a modest amount of resources to this for several years. And as you know, if you've looked at our demolition list, these projects are expensive. And so it takes a long time at $850,000 a year to save up enough resources to tear down a $5 or $6 million building. And so, we've compiled some of the resources that we've managed to save for a couple of years. And then as part of the Chancellor's investment plan with excess FY25 earnings, the Chancellor proposed a $6 million infusion into this demolition fund. And so that would take the current balance that we have, the FY26 allocation of $850,000, the $6 million would bring us up to a balance in that pool of just a little over $10 million. So our goal in this phase is straightforward. It's to make the greatest possible impact on the aging space with the $10.3 million budget that we have available to us. That, as I said, that total includes the base fund, the annual allocation, the $6 million provided through the Chancellor's plan. The facilities team has evaluated multiple scenarios using a consistent set of criteria, building conditions, timing, abatement complexity, campus impact, and overall cost efficiency. The recommendation path that we've put forward would remove approximately 130,000 gross square feet of space. And if you roll it out for a couple of more years and you incorporate normal hall, which we would have enough to do in a couple of years, it brings that number up around 150,000 gross square feet at about $63 a square foot. This approach delivers the highest square footage reduction within budget and preserves flexibility as projects move through permitting and bidding. This process is both data-driven and coordinated across campuses. Projects are prioritized based on readiness and strategic alignment with campus master plans, ensuring that we're targeting the right facilities at the right time. And then importantly, each of these projects will still return back to this committee for individual approval. So we're really presenting the framework, and then all of those individual pieces would come back here with the funding component and looking for your approval. Looking ahead, the annual $850,000 state allocation will sustain this work beyond this cycle, allowing us to continue to reduce deferred maintenance and operating costs year over year. But as we noted in the Chancellor's January report, you know, we've got about a $28 million kind of backlog, and so this would still leave us with about 18 million on the table for projects. I'll add in, going off my notes for a second, we did put in an $18 million appropriation request to the legislature. So this is a year, if any, where if you're looking for one-time resources versus ongoing, that was our argument in this case. And so that's the second component of this plan. So with that, let me turn it over to Gretchen to tie these into our master planning and strategic planning efforts. And then we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Lowe. The current demolition funding plan represents an important step towards establishing a sustainable baseline for our system's physical footprint. With the additional $6 million allocation, we can remove approximately 130,000 square feet, reducing long-term facility costs across our campuses, as Nate Harris previously noted. These efforts continue our comprehensive plan for space optimization and real estate management, which calls for reducing aging infrastructure, improving utilization, and aligning our facilities with our academic and operational priorities. Parallel with the funding strategy, we also plan to fully integrate demolition into our project planning and approval process. So this means when a capital project requires demolition to remain net neutral in square footage, the demolition and related project costs will be presented together for your consideration. It's important to note that the board does have permit exceptions for increase in square footage that relates to research space as well. These efforts ensure that every project brought to the trustees reflects its complete life cycle impact to include both the new investment and its future removal offsets. So we'll deliver on our commitments and be able to manage our space more responsibly. To further strengthen this work, the University of Maine system has issued an RFP for comprehensive master plan services. Each university will update its master plan through this process, supported by a unified system framework. These plans will assess space utilization, deferred maintenance, and enrollment projections to identify where facilities should be renovated, repurposed, or even removed. Together, the demolition strategy and master plans will ensure that future facility investments are right-sized to enrollment and mission needs, and that limited capital dollars are focused on modern, efficient, and sustainable infrastructure. Our goal with this master planning RFP is to make an award before the end of January in 2026. And we're committed to returning to the board and providing you with updates as we progress with this RFP and as each campus engages with these services to conduct their master plan efforts. All capital projects that include demolition will continue to be presented to the board in alignment with Board Policy 701, budgets, operating, and capital costs. This further aligns with your delegation of authority matrix, which clarifies that demolition projects meeting capital thresholds follow the same oversight structure as other real property actions. So, progressing on these efforts, we will also be including an update in our annual real estate and lease report, providing the board with a consistent measure of system-wide space reduction, cost efficiencies, and progress towards our long-term sustainability goals. This report will be combined with our internal process of conducting quarterly real estate reviews with each campus to help ensure that the fund's purpose remains aligned with the system's financial and operational priorities. And finally, by embedding demolition in project planning, aligning with Board Policy 701, and tying our decisions to updated master plans, we're making the Demolition Fund a strategic tool, not just to remove aging facilities, but to sustain a modern, efficient, and mission-driven campus portfolio for the long term. So I'm happy to entertain any questions. Trustee Johnson?
You were on mute, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Hey, Heather, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. So Gretchen, when you just went through that, you referenced enrollment projections. We spent a lot of time at the retreat talking about enrollment projections and why we can't do that and why that doesn't work. So I'm just curious how enrollment projections for demolition relate to enrollment projections that we might be making in a separate path for new investment or for new programming. It feels like that foundation should be consistent. And I know there was a lot of talk last week that we couldn't do that. So I'm just curious how that plays in.
So I will take a stab at answering and then look to Vice Chancellor St. John and perhaps Nate Harris as well to correct or clarify anything that I may misstate. But from a master planning initiative, we're really looking at enrollment from the eyes of how we use our space. So when you think back to the presentation that the capital plan presentation that UMaine just went through, they talked a lot about density and how we have more gross square footage per student than our peers. And our goal is to really use those the enrollment data to look at who's in person, who's versus online, et cetera, and to right size our footprint to meet that need. And Jeff, can you tie in a little bit more about
I'd be
the
happy
projections?
to. So, thank you. So, Trustee Johnson, great question. So, in the context of the discussion last week, we had conversations about what enrollment might look like in our system in the much longer term. From an enrollment management perspective, longer term is 5 years or 10 years. Budgets are built annually in our system, as you know, and enrollment projections tend to be built annually as well. Given all of the variables in the current enrollment landscape, which trustees are well aware of, it is and would be enormously difficult for us to project enrollment more than a year, 18 months out, really in any area of our operations. And it would be difficult to tie our enrollment managers to such projections if we asked for them, given the mutability of the enrollment landscape, both in Maine and regionally and beyond. So that's the context in which I offered that part of the discussion last weekend. I hope that helps.
And just to provide a little more detail when we're talking about the master planning process, what will happen is the consulting firm will come into the university that they're working with, and they'll look to understand how the existing space is being used. So they'll ask for current enrollment data. They'll look at down to the level of how many classes are assigned to this classroom, what's the size of the classroom, how many people in each class, and they'll get kind of to that level of granularity. And then they'll make an assessment based on that information, based on future programmatics that are identified by the university, any changes in programming, and based on assumptions that the university provides based on future enrollment, and I think it's very broad. Is enrollment going to grow? Is it going to stay flat? Is it going to decline? And they'll kind of take all that information to highlight which type of space we may be rich in and have a little bit of excess, and which areas we may need additional space. And it typically breaks down to the size of the classroom, 50 or more seats, 10 to 25 seats, and provide that kind of overlay to help universities understand how are they using their space and where and what kind of space do they need looking forward in the future.
Thank you. President Fernie Mundy.
Thank you. I just have a quick question, and this is very exciting, and we've been following this planning. As I understand it as well, Nate, there will be some effort to take a look at the ways in which space that is not classroom space, but that is vital to us, research space, development space, community engagement kinds of spaces, that will get built in too with I'm assuming a different kind of calculation relative to how we think about density there. But wanted to be sure to flag that. Thank you.
You're absolutely correct. Thank you for highlighting that.
Pat.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the presentation, and I certainly support it. Can Gretchen or someone just explain to me the RFP that we're going to do, that we're in the process of doing, and that should be awarded, I think you said in January. How do the responsibilities of that entity differ from what you, Gretchen, and Nate and Ryan and our experts have done already? What are we handing off to the RFP to undertake that we are not capable or we are not able to do ourselves? I just didn't really quite understand the details of what the RFP requires. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm going to defer to Nate Harris on this one. Nate, do you mind taking that?
Absolutely, Gretchen. And so broadly, the work that we typically do and that you see in our presentations are the 1 and 5 year capital plan. And those are based obviously on emerging needs and plans that the universities have developed. And one of those plans that they use is the master plan, which is a 10-year kind of look forward at each university. And it's very broad. It's not just down to the space, but it's down to programmatics, it's interactions with the community. It identifies how they want to use their campus space moving forward. And the previous initiative is coming up on probably close to 8+ years, depending on the university that you look at. And so it's really time to relook and get that long range plan that really builds the foundation for those 1 and 5 year capital plans. As part of that, what this firm will do is they will do eyes-on kind of examinations of our space. So right now we rely on Gordian's data, which is kind of a data-driven based on their formulas, based on how much we're spending in the building, how much they estimate we should be spending in the building to identify our net asset value. And this will basically provide another data point based on the actual physical condition examination of the building. So it provides a little bit more fidelity and map out kind of a long-term plan for the facilities. As a great example, during the last master plan round, University of Southern Maine identified things like the Center for the Arts and a residence hall on the Portland campus. And those things have now been achieved. And so now it's time to kind of go back and take a new look. Okay, how are we going to be examining and looking to change the campus over the next 10 years?
Thanks.
We can't hear you, Trustee Cates.
Hello?
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
I'm sorry. Nate, I thought it was a little broader than that. Perhaps I misunderstood, but I thought that the successful RFP bidder, if you will, was also going to suggest potential reuse opportunities for some of these buildings, whether it's a P3 opportunity like the Ursus Hotel, for instance, or maybe an outright sale or something like that, using their commercial connections in the community and in the nation. Is that within the scope of this RFP or not?
Go ahead, Nate.
I'm sorry, whoever.
Yeah, I would have to go back to look at the specifics. We do ask them to look at the space and how it could be reutilized. I don't think it'll get down to the level of, and here's a P3 opportunity we think you should pursue. But I think it will provide opportunities and identify areas where excess space could look to be reutilized.
Gretchen, your understanding as well?
Yes, to build on that. So what they should come out with is a recommendation for us to say, like, these buildings, we would recommend you renovate to use the space as X, Y, or Z. And they may come back and say, we recommend that you demolish or divest from these properties. So they're really taking in all the data that we're feeding them to be able to make those informed recommendations. How we execute those is up to the university, and we'll have to, explore all of those different potential opportunities.
Do you have any idea of the time, assuming that the RFP is granted, say February 1, the time frame for completion of that entire project?
So the entire project I expect will take a few years because we are doing one master plan for each university. And so we're asking the universities to also budget for this. Once we make the award and we identify the vendor, we'll have to work with them to figure out what's in their capacity as well, to be able to get to all of our different universities. So what I'd like to propose is that we come back to the FFT committee with an update and a timeline for what that would look like.
Great. Let's try to keep that on the agenda if we can. My thought is that there may be some buildings which are kind of immediate no-brainers for, we're not going to need these anymore. Let's look for some reuse or sale or whatever, and it would be too bad if we had to wait several years to even begin that discussion. That's all.
Agreed.
Barbara, thank you.
Speaking from the system-wide board perspective role, I understand that a lot of the data and the recommendations and the analysis needs to come on a campus-by-campus basis. But the board's role here is to make decisions about the system-wide set of priorities for investment and allocation of resources. And that's the risks, the rewards, the alternatives, and the implementation of undefined, at this point, board priorities in this area is the process I'm interested in. And I view the RFP or the contracts or the material you're developing as raw data and set of alternatives that need, at some point, the board's decision-making with regard to allocation of resources. So if viewed from that perspective, I certainly hope that the material that's presented to us reflect that approach. Thank you.
Other questions or comments about this? Yes, Chancellor, good morning. Chancellor Malloy, I'm sorry, can you hear me? Thank you.
We have you muted, Chancellor.
You're on mute.
You're muted.
Hold on a second.
There you go.
There we go. Sorry, it wouldn't let me speak. Again, first of all, I want to go back to what Ryan and I thought was a reasonable presentation with respect to how do we move forward. I have spent the better part of the last 7 years trying to make sure that we're making appropriate investments in updating facilities, building new facilities. And quite frankly, I think that's one of the reasons we're doing as well as we are, because we started to concentrate on what students wanted as opposed to what we wanted. And that was a dynamic change in many ways. And understanding the demands that students and their parents have for expectations with respect to their child's, and I'm talking about 17, 18-year-olds, what they expect for those folks. I took a tour of New Hampshire, the University of New Hampshire, just to understand how far behind we were with respect to our infrastructure. And obviously, and I've said this before, that we had a wonderful period of investment in our system between the end of the Second World War and sometime in the early 60s. And then by and large, our investments fell to the wayside, and even failure to appropriately support buildings that ultimately, therefore, we're left with the cost of taking them down. Obviously, we don't want to take things down that can be reused if there's a use. Otherwise, investing in these buildings don't make a whole lot of sense, and that includes, when I say investing, the cost of maintaining the buildings on a year-to-year basis when no one's actually using it, or it is so underutilized that it is eating up people's budgets. So I think that what we've presented to the board as an initial step to fund the taking down of buildings, but we want to do it in a comprehensive way. And quite frankly, we want to make sure that all of our universities are getting the attention they need and are participating in appropriate fashion. Obviously, we have some universities that are relatively small, and we have 2 universities, 3 universities, 4 universities that are substantially larger than those. But I think we can balance these things, as I think have done a good job in balancing during the time that I've been with you, and certainly I would intend to continue to do that. I do again say that students and families have expectations, and unfortunately, too often we've missed those expectations, and that's why we have put so much time and effort into how do we build the buildings that will attract students and serve their needs, and how do we eliminate costly non-used buildings as rapidly as we can. I think Gretchen's done an outstanding job. I think Ryan's done an outstanding job as well. Nate, I think the world of just doing great work. So I think that this is the right road forward. Now, having said that, obviously this is the ultimate decision of the trustees, and we understand that. But it is our obligation to present a plan that is supportable by you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Chancellor. Other comments or discussion on this agenda item? So the initial demolition recommendations, those will come to us as in future meetings. We'll also reschedule this general discussion of demolition for another meeting to revisit the excellent report we were given, showing several options for pace and funding of further demolition beyond this, and we'll do that. And I just want to say that in a separate subject, when we're talking about this RFP that's gone out, I'd like to put back on the agenda for another meeting something which would hopefully allow for a more aggressive timeline on perhaps reusing or selling some buildings that we clearly know we're not going to need. So we'll talk about that again too, I'm sure. So having completed that agenda item, why don't we move on then to what I thought we were going to do first, which was the strategic AI update. Vice Chancellor Lowe, thank you.
Thank you. And this one I actually really am excited about. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Over the past year, the Systems AI Working Group has examined, I think, one of the most transformative issues facing higher education, how to integrate AI in ways that strengthen our mission of access, affordability, and quality. The charge that our group had from the board was to develop system-wide recommendations that promoted ethical, equitable, and strategic AI use, enhancing learning and operations while safeguarding privacy and academic integrity and institutional values. What I'm excited to share today is the roadmap that we are bringing forward for responsible adoption, one that balances innovation with stewardship and positions UMS as a national model for public higher education. So at the heart of our recommendations, if you've had a chance to review those, is this philosophy of stewardship rather than gatekeeping. We think the system's role is to provide structure and coordination and resources, and allowing the campuses and faculty to determine what's appropriate within their disciplines and specifically in their classrooms. The local control model from our committee preserves creativity and flexibility, but allows campuses to adapt AI principles to their specific mission. It also recognizes faculty governance as being essential to responsible AI integration. Our compact size at the system, we think, gives us an advantage here. Based on my conversations with other systems, it's clear we're moving faster, we're moving together, we're sharing best practices system-wide on a regular basis. Talk a little bit about the current landscape. So over the last year, we've created, I think, a strong foundation for AI integration. We give all of our employees access to a diverse portfolio of AI tools, far more comprehensive than 99% of the higher ed institutions out there, maybe even 100%. Alongside those tools, we've built a kind of our own growing ecosystem of learning and support. We are working on a resource hub, which is one of our core recommendations, to a central site for all of our guidance and use cases and all of those pieces. We've stood up several training opportunities. So we're in our third cohort right now of a 6-week certificate program that we offer. We're in our second 6-week series of lunch and learns, where we take 90 minutes and explain a specific AI concept. And we've touched well over 1,000 people just in those kind of structured settings over the course of the last couple of months. I think before I go into the next section, I'll see Trustee Alexander, if you have a question I can answer before I get too far further.
I apologize for interrupting you, Ryan. Is there a report or a document or a presentation that's written about what's going on and who's doing it and what your recommendations are? Because I can't find it.
Yeah, so I presented, I should have attached it to this agenda, but the System AI Task Force report was part of the September board agenda. So you can find it in the September board materials, but maybe while I'm talking, we can send that around as well.
So basically, you're providing us with that report or additional material?
Going over that report. So
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Sorry.
No problem. The framework that we talked about was kind of introducing it at a high level to the board, and then almost like our last demolition conversation, we're anticipating multiple conversations about the task force report. I'll present it today, but there'll be no ask at the end for a motion. It's a pretty substantial request, and we expect it to take shape in this committee meeting over several meetings into next year. So a key finding from our group was the need to address equity in AI access. Currently, students in departments with financial resources can purchase those products that I was talking about, while others cannot. And so it's not unusual for us to have really small 2- and 3-person departments. And so while it doesn't sound like a lot to equip 3 people with a couple of AI tools, that can significantly impact, especially a small department's budget. And we see the same issue with students. And so a significant concern about creating this divide of haves and have-nots. We think the solution that we recommend is a universal access model where every student, every employee would have access to secure and supported AI tools. We think it's imperative that training and resources be provided to everyone to, again, ensure that consistent understanding and that foundational knowledge of AI. And we think a sustainable funding model would make the most sense here rather than figuring out each year as we roll forward. The funding model that is really at the core of our recommendation is a per credit hour fee projected somewhere in the $15 to $20 a semester credit hour range. And again, look forward to going into more detail about that as we roll forward. It's really broken out into kind of 3 key investment areas. The biggest one, as you would imagine, is the licensing of these tools. At $20 to $30 a person, we can achieve some savings through an enterprise agreement, but it's still substantially an expensive offering. We think just as important is that it needs to come with support and training. For those of you that have spent time playing around with these AI tools, you've probably figured out, but without that foundational knowledge of how these tools work, without having a good idea of how to test the output, to understanding the effective ways to prompt these tools, that can also create some significant issues. And so we think training needs to be a key component of that as well. And then some modest support for pilot projects testing that we've been doing for the last year or so. The proposal that you have, the task force proposal, talks about the potential of this going into effect in the spring of 2026. While we think that would be the ideal start to prepare for the following fall, we also recognize that may not be practical given where this conversation is falling in the budget cycle and the impact of mid-year fees on financial aid packages and all of that kind of stuff. And so, again, we think that'll be part of future conversations with this committee. And we think, probably a more likely scenario would be looking to jumpstart this over the summer and then have things formally kick in the fall of 2026. We think that phased approach would allow us to build the support structures, the training, and the contracts maybe before the fee even kicked in. Implementation, again, is going to require careful coordination, and shared governance. Our plan talks about, again, that centralized AI support with system-wide expertise, evolving the current AI working group into maybe a permanent AI steering committee. And so working with the chair on that piece. Gonna wrap up my last couple of pieces and then go to questions. So broader contracts, we think we've had a chance to look at our task force report in the context of state and national priorities. So the governor's AI task force, which I've had the pleasure of serving on for the last year, is finalizing its recommendations, and those will come out over the course of the next few weeks. At the federal level, the U.S. Department of Education and the White House Office of Science and Technology have both released guidance that emphasize ethics, transparency, access in higher education. And so we think our report complements those other broad task force reports that are out there. Rolling forward, I think as I've noted a couple times, we look forward to continuing our work with this committee as we refine budget modeling and fee options and implementation sequencing. I will also add in, again, straying off my notes, that I think one of the things I want to go back and talk to the task force about, but I think we'll be looking at is potentially hosting some open sessions at campuses this fall and winter to get some feedback. Had a great discussion with one of the student groups on one of the campuses and spent a little bit of time laying out this recommendation, why I thought it makes sense, and volunteered to go back and talk to the full student group. And I think that conversation went so well that I think I'd like to do something similar at other campuses with both students and faculty and staff as well. So I'm going to throw that out there as well. So let me just wrap up by noting, these tools are not going away. They're already reshaping higher education, the workplace, everything that we do. And so we think this plan can provide every student, faculty member, and staff member with the tools, the skills, and confidence that they're going to need to thrive in this AI-enhanced world that we're in, while protecting what makes higher education distinctly human, judgment, creativity, and those personal connections. And so with that, happy to take any questions about the task force report, and we'll send that around again, but as a reminder, you can get that in the September board materials, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm going to bet that Ryan used AI to help prepare this presentation, but that's just a guess.
You should always assume that. Yes, thank you.
Riley.
Thank you for the presentation. Like at the bigger board meeting a month ago, I have a lot of questions with this, so I'll pause in between them so I'm not hogging all the airtime. My first one is, Ryan, can you explain how this program with the costs would differ in capabilities from what we currently have with Gemini Pro through the UMaine system and or a student using, ChatGPT free on their own? Can you just talk about like, the capabilities upgrade this would offer?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why the committee felt so strong about this universal access is the free piece. And so let me touch on that. There is a substantial difference if you played around with these AI tools, this, between the free models of these AI tools and the paid version. So I'll use the Gemini Pro example that you mentioned. Not only in the output, because typically they, the free plans default to a lower model, but there are also substantial security issues that don't come with being in the UMS ecosystem, being in that environment that Gemini allows us to do. So with Gemini, we've got a two-way agreement, and so student information, employee information is safe. If Ryan is out there in a free ChatGPT account and I'm putting that kind of information in there, then I'm exposing that to everyone. And so it's even exacerbated a little bit more because so many of these tools offer free plans to college students. And so, you might be out there wondering, well, why are you going to charge me a fee if I can just sign up here and I can have a free version of ChatGPT for a year, or a free version of Gemini? So again, it doesn't come with the security of being in the UMS ecosystem where we feel where we have all of those kind of data protections. And then these plans, they're for a year, and then you're going to get cut off, and you're going to be back in that same position. It's not free plans forever, and so we'd just be kicking that same issue down the road a little bit further. So Gemini is the recommendation, although again, over the next several months, as we have conversations with the committee, it's possible the landscape could change. That's one thing we know about AI; it changes on a regular basis. But at least kind of sitting here today at the end of October, the team felt that Gemini was the solution that made the most sense system-wide. But again, we'll revisit that as we have conversations throughout the fall and winter.
Riley, I'm not seeing other hands, so go ahead with your next question, please.
Awesome. Next one is a follow-up to that, which is just, if it was in the materials and I missed it, apologies, but I'm assuming there is a cost that the system is paying currently for the Gemini Pro subscription we have now. So what additional capabilities are we getting for the extra $450, $500 per student, taking a full, 30 credit hour a year?
Yeah. So to be clear, the Gemini that is available now is only if you pay for that. And so if you've got access to the version that Ryan has here, the Gemini Pro version inside UMS, is because we're paying for that piece. So this isn't replacing. We don't have system-wide adoption of AI tools right now. We have a system where if you can afford it in your office budget, then you reach out to us, you reach out to IT, and we'll hook you up with that. But if you don't have those resources, then you don't have access to these tools.
Riley, let me interrupt you. Clyde Mitchell. Good morning, Clyde.
Good morning. Vice Chancellor Lowe, sorry to ask this question, but it's come from students who've kind of heard about this. And so I'm just taking the example of a student for one semester. So say it's at the upper end, $20 a credit hour. They would be paying $300 a semester if they're doing 15 credit hours, which our average students do. A UMA student maybe just doing one class would be paying $60. If they signed up for the Pro version, that would cost them $100. So the students have asked, are they subsidizing staff and faculty? Because it seems like it would be quite a lot for full-time students. That was kind of the question that I had. I'm sorry to bring it up this forum, but
no, I think it's a great question. I think one of the things that we've committed to is being kind of really transparent about what's in here, and so it's all out there, and we may need to look at different options. We may need to look at whether the system can subsidize some support of this. We would anticipate, this was the conversation I had with the chair, is that this is a big enough issue that it can't be, we can't have the conversation in isolation of the budget. And so just to use an extreme example, if 7 campuses show up this fall and independently all have, you know, $10 a credit hour technology fees because they've got something really exciting planned or some other fee piece, and then this layers on top of that, then, you know, we don't want that to happen. And so we want this conversation, the conversation about the fee and what the right amount is, or if there's a fee at all, to take place in the context of budget conversations this fall and this winter with this committee. And even as campuses have conversations, as they always do in the fall on their budgets, looking forward, you know, if there are invitations, I'm happy to show up at those and talk about this specific piece. So I don't know that we've threaded the needle exactly perfect, but that's one of the reasons why we've committed to a longer process, why I've committed to going out and having as many conversations with students and faculty as we possibly can to try to find out what the right mix is.
Ryan, thank you very much. The students and we are all very appreciative of the work you're doing, because this is the future of education.
Thanks, Clyde. Riley, back to you.
Thank you. Another capabilities question. So I'm assuming there's no opt-out for this. That's what I saw in the presentation. So my question is, what have you heard from faculty and students on what this would be used for? And I guess what I'm getting at there is, I think I made this comment at the bigger board meeting. You know, I currently have several professors that say, do not use AI for any part of this course whatsoever. And I've talked with some faculty and they talk about, well, you know, maybe you don't use it for the course, but you use it to help with research. And I have some professors who say, you know, you can use AI to like browse the internet to give you sources, but, you know, you shouldn't be writing with it. We don't want you doing the deep research with it. So I guess if that is the attitude of at least a decent chunk of my professors, I assume it's the true for others, and you can't opt out, why would we not be saying, you know, you can do a $20 per person plan for Gemini Pro that comes out to $240 a month. And if you're a student that wants to use AI and it's useful for you, you pay for that. But if you're 50%, 40%, 30%, I don't know the number of students that aren't allowed to use it, don't want to use it, can't use it, why are we choosing to charge them $400 to $600 per year?
So we did have a long discussion about opting out, and ultimately it was our committee's recommendation to not include an opt-out piece, because again, we think it gets us into the same haves and have-nots conversation that the committee was trying to avoid. I think it's a great question. I mean, I think you were the one that asked the question of, you know, what if all my faculty members ban it? And now I'm paying the fee and I can't use it. I think that's a fair question. But I also think the rate of change everywhere is really, really fast in this space. So again, we're not talking about a fee that's going to kick in, you know, on November 1st, and we're talking about a fee for next fall. And so what, you know, I'm certainly not going to speak for faculty across the system. I invite Clyde, anyone else that wants to weigh in. But I will say, in my own experience and the number of trainings that I've had the opportunity to do at the campuses, I can see a significant shift in the conversations that I have. Not as many with students, just because I'm not on a campus, but certainly with faculty members that are more interested in these tools. You know, my conversations with faculty in March and April and June and May and so on were all about cheating. Half my demos were, you know, show me how I can detect cheating, show me this. And that's what the conversation was over and over. And I've seen a significant shift. Conversations about, you know, I'm working with a campus that was interested in creating an AI tool that faculty could use to generate a syllabus consistent all the way across the institution, for instance. How they could use it in the classroom. We've got a faculty member on our task force that has used these tools in his classroom for for several semesters and spent some time talking about that, sharing that experience. And so I've seen an evolution, not just with faculty, but with staff and others that I interact with on a regular basis. So I think we'll be in a dramatically different spot next fall. But again, we've got months of conversations ahead to explore this more and to have more conversations and maybe get some specific faculty input.
Barbara.
So if we're talking eventually, or at least considering increasing fees and charges to come to our university by all students, it's in effect a tuition increase, however you describe it. And we're entering an era where it's highly competitive, to say the least, to get a shrinking number of people to come into our universities. And we're talking about a lot of working adults who are working, adult learners, a lot of online, a lot of credentialing, people who come for a very specific reason, want a specific degree or program, and you're adding to those costs. I would hope that we will have the presentation of how we are compared to our competitors in terms of how the costs for these tools are being included in our requirements and cost structures compared to others. So I hope that's part of the future discussion.
Every budget presentation I do, we always compare ourselves to peers because we always compare favorably to our peers. This is one where we're leading, not following. So there's not a ton of examples out there. There are a few, and we'll certainly highlight those as we roll forward with this committee. But there are not tons of examples out there because we're quite frankly ahead of where most institutions are in this space. I'd also note again, I think all those things are true, but about cost and stuff. But I think we also want to make sure that we provide our graduates with that foundational knowledge, so that when they leave, they're going to increasingly be asked to use these tools. And I think we want to make sure they have, again, that foundational knowledge.
If I could just follow up.
Please.
I would strongly urge you to consider opt-out models at the early stages of this in order to make it more friendly and in effect voluntary. And building on that over time might result in the model you're suggesting. But there is a real visceral human consumer reaction to, I got to pay it no matter what, even though, quote, I don't want it, I don't want to use it, it doesn't fit for me for the particular courses I want to take. So I'm going to press on that as we move forward in these discussions.
Thank you, Barbara. Riley?
Final comment from me is I like where this is going, and I like the final vision for how it's implemented. I just don't like where we are now. And that is, the vision of this being involved in classrooms, in teaching, and we're going to need our students to know how to use this, or they're not going to be as good at finding a job and keeping a job. I agree with all of that. I just worry, similar to Barbara, implementation's hard for any program, but especially for something like this, when we can talk about faculty taking it on and, examples here and there of them using it in classrooms and stuff. But we can also talk about, from my perspective, twice the amount of examples of faculty saying, hey, you can use it to compile sources, but nothing else. And I can use ChatGPT free for that. And I understand the data concern and stuff, but when I'm saying, give me 10 sources related to floodplains in Farmington, I don't feel I'm putting the university at risk. So if next fall I'm taking classes that stipulate that, and that's what I can use ChatGPT for free, I'd be pretty hard pressed if I was paying $500 out of pocket. So without an opt-out model, I don't know if I can support it going forward. And then especially without advanced faculty buy-in, at least on a broader scale than a couple examples, I just worry we're putting the cart before the horse. Thank you.
Thanks, Riley. Emily.
Thanks, Roger. Ryan, my question is, what kind of conversation and work has the committee done assessing use of AI outside of formal classroom activities, formal like curriculum-driven work? Because I think my sense is that AI is not just limited to assigned work, right? It's also part of engaging, whether it's in student activities or life or other ways our students, faculty, and staff are engaging with AI. Did you do any assessment of that? Because I think these are important questions about course load and credit hours. I think AI is certainly not limited from our purview as how we educate students to just the formal classroom syllabi. I guess I would use that word. What kind of conversations have you had about that as you look at the broader experience of being part of the University of Maine system community?
Yeah. So thank you for that question. We engaged, as the task force met, we engaged with the campus AI task forces. So it was interesting how this worked. We had a system task force, and almost simultaneously we had task forces on each of the individual campuses, which I think supports kind of the framework that we were talking about, which is those laser specifics down at the campus level and the framework up at the system. We had, if you get a chance to kind of peek through the report, we tried to cite as many of those as we could. But one of the things that, I mean, I live them every day, but we heard some really great examples about how folks are using these today. Lots of kind of innovative ways that we're using them in finance, and I know Gretchen and Robert are using them on a regular basis. But one of the things that, and again, this came from the conversations with the campus task forces, we got some really great use cases that we heard from each of the campuses. I mean, some here's how I shaved 10 minutes off my workday doing something, really cool. But some really innovative uses, next level stuff at UMaine, at USM as well. So in research and in other areas. So it's not just about the classroom. We spent a lot of time talking about that, and I think that was completely appropriate. Lots of workplace examples that we see on a regular basis. I constantly use the example of myself. I mean, I've baked in enough, use these tools enough to free up enough capacity so that I spend, half my day now in AI related activities, and still feel like I'm on top of my CFO stuff as much as I have ever been. And that's what we're really trying to do, is if we can get that foundational knowledge of AI out to all of our employees, and it's not Ryan standing over his shoulder saying, here's the best way you can use this in your job. We just give you the foundational knowledge, and then our employees can figure that out. We spend all kinds of time talking about how smart our employees are, because they are. We give them this kind of knowledge, and then they can figure out the best way to apply it to the things that they do every day. That's where we think the huge potential is.
Thank you. And the other question I wanted to ask is, or just sort of a statement I wanted to make, I guess it's a question, is I think the security issues are very big. Like to me, that's of great concern. And I think that's why we have to be careful about both formal educational use and broader educational use as part of the UMS system community as we look at access to AI, because I think we've just, as rapidly as people are expanding how they use AI, we are also rapidly grappling with the security implications of it for personal information, for access to larger systems as AI systems learn, and also people who are more nefarious, if you will, seek to try to take advantage of it. So I really just appreciate the focus you're giving to maximizing our security for students, faculty, and staff. Thanks.
And that's a great point. I won't name names, but I was on a call yesterday with a large public higher ed institution who heard some of the things that we were doing and were interested in exploring some of the options. And this particular person was in charge of HR at their large institution. And so when I asked what kind of tools they were using, they said they weren't allowed to use tools yet formally. They were using free versions. And so like, you know, someone in HR using free versions of these tools to test them out is, you know, even had my radar going sideways. So that's the kind of stuff. I think Riley's example is exactly right. I mean, are we worried that students are going to be putting information in these tools that probably not? Probably the example he mentioned is a good one, but it's a very real one with employees for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments on this subject? Riley?
Yep, just a probably predictable follow-up point, which is I agree with what Ryan just said, and I guess that I feel that bolsters my case that maybe there's a little bit of what Barbara mentioned sorry, it was Clyde mentioned about, you know, are we as students subsidizing something? It seemed like the security part was a decent part of the argument for why we need to do this. And so if a decent part of the security part is for the staff and faculty and admin, then it seems more to me we as students are subsidizing something that most of the benefits are not accruing to us, at least on the security front. Thank you.
To be continued. Thanks very much. And thanks, Ryan. I think we all, I don't want to say it every meeting, but I'm going to probably say it every meeting, how lucky we are to have Ryan quarterbacking this effort. And if he weren't here, I don't know where we would be on this, but it wouldn't be here. And if we weren't lucky enough just with Ryan, we've got Robert Placido, who himself is an expert in this field. So we're in good hands. Lastly, on our agenda today, an effort to maintain our unbeaten streak on our strategic plan tracking update responsibilities. Gretchen and Ryan.
So I'll kick off, and then Gretchen can do the other half. So just as a reminder, we split these each meeting and take about half of them in the budget space and half in the facility space. So just a couple of quick updates on our goals. Several related to budget. So again, I'll note that we're in the early stages of budget development for 2027. We'll be issuing that kind of budget guidance. It will include the typical language that we used in the last couple of years, which is the expectation that campuses will balance their budgets without system resources. I'll note we have another item related to realistic basing budget changes on realistic budget assumptions. Again, I'll note this is only our second time that we've been in this position, but it's the second time in a row where we are at the November board meeting. This would be typically the time when I would present budget changes for all of our campuses. Again, this will be the second year in a row that we have no mid-year budget adjustments. Doesn't mean we don't have challenges out there, but once again, through the great initial work that Robert did when he was in a different capacity, helping us think through how we develop an enrollment model, the great work that Jeff and his team do in IR, and then the really, really great work that the campuses do. We're getting just much better at predicting enrollment and don't have the need to make substantial mid-year budget adjustments, which again was one of the goals from the strategic plan. My last piece that I'll reference in my section is again just noting that we also had a couple of references in there in our section to demolition and the strategic use of facilities and taking down facilities that aren't used. And so again, just a reference back to our previous conversation around the demolition initiative, and we'll be bringing that back. So with that, I'll shift it over to Gretchen to do the other half of our report.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Lowe. Much of my update has already been covered throughout this whole agenda with the demolition effort, as well as the capital plan presentations, et cetera. Just one thing to add of note under financial sustainability goal 3.3, we have, through the work of our carbon commitment committee, identified 3 carbon reducing projects that are projected to reduce about 7.8 metric tons of carbon dioxide. As these projects progress, we'll be bringing them forward for board approval, but just wanted to highlight that we are continuing to focus on that strategic initiative as well. All right, any questions?
Thank you, Greg. Any questions for Ryan or for Gretchen on this report? Emily, do we pass the test?
I mean, yeah, and also it's a preview for our 1 o'clock strategic planning committee meeting, which will be taking place this afternoon. All are invited, public meeting. Would love to have you.
Excellent. So I think we now complete our agenda. Chancellor, anything else you wanted to say for the general good here today?
What I would say is I think we've done a lot of work in the last month to get ready for these presentations, and very proud of what's been accomplished, and a deep discussion not only of AI but of every issue that came before us today. So I just want to thank trustees and those of us who prepared these plans and these suggestions. And so I thought it was a great meeting, and I didn't talk a lot because the people I work with were doing such a great job.
Amen to that. Chair Riley, anything else you want to add before we
No,
adjourn? You have 60 seconds, so we're not late.
We have to be done on time. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you all. So we've completed our agenda, and I'll just declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks to all.
Thanks, Roger.
Thanks.